Hello and welcome to Repurpose Your Purpose, my podcast. My name is Aurora Minigallo, and I work with career changers, business owners, and leaders, all of whom have one thing in common. They want to do work they love. And this podcast, excuse me, is really about inspiring you and giving you some ideas and just providing that extra reminder that you too can move towards your purpose and fulfillment at work. So today I am super excited to have here with me Joe Altepeter. Did I say your last name right?
Yes, thank you.
You would think it's easy, but I guess. So, yeah, Joe, let me start by introducing you to everybody with a little bio, okay? And then we can dive into my questions for you, and I'll say a little bit more about why I have you here. I'm invited you to talk to me. Okay, so Joe Altepeter is a senior executive leader with expertise in human services, including homelessness, social enterprise, workforce development, and LGBTQIA plus services. For over 18 years, Joe has been a skilled innovator in approaches that lead to meaningful change, including community collaboration, project management, program development, government and NGO collaborations, business and funding oversight that lead to community investment, and systems change on both local and national levels. Wow. So, first of all, everybody listening to this or watching this, you get why I want to talk to Joe, right? But also, Joe and I met years ago, and I've been so impressed by his journey and our conversations. And he was even on a panel when I used to have events in person in Los Angeles. And so, when I thought about who to invite on this new podcast, I was like, Joe, I want to talk to you. So thank you for joining me.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for having me. When you were reading my bio, I thought you said stealth, innovator, and I was like, oh my God, should I put stealth? Thank you.
Yeah,
You made me sound really good. I appreciate you too, Aurora. We've had a long-term relationship, so I appreciate that and what you bring to the community at
thank
large.
you.
So I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. So let me start. I want to start from the beginning with you, okay? I really want to talk about yeah, like I'm curious. Did you like were you one of those kids who kind of knew what he wanted to do when he grew up, all the time, or how did you end up doing the work you did? Like tell me more.
Oh, heck no. I didn't. I grew up in a working class family. College was not assumed. I was a creative, maybe artist. I was definitely a creative person. I loved art. So I fell into fashion. So you'll hear a little bit of my story about working in the fashion industry. But it's really taken me on this like stumbling through a journey um, of understanding as I grew what my purpose was and what I wanted to do with my life and how I could impact others. So heck no to the first question.
So tell me a little bit, like, what was your journey like? What was your career journey like?
Yeah, so as I said, I went to a design school for fashion design, and I just really fell into that. And I worked about over 20 years in the fashion industry here in Los Angeles. I loved it. I loved that. I loved that work. But during that time, I was also doing a lot of community work, organizing activism with HIV and AIDS, with the LGBTQAI populations. I was a co-founder of Pasadena Pride back in the 90s, from like 1990 to 1995, which currently is the San Gabriel Valley Pride. And they also have a San Gabriel Valley Gay and Lesbian Center. which is it's super small, but it's really impactful for a community like Pasadena or the San Gabriel Valley. But that was the work that really impacted me, and it was very personal, growing up in a marginalized community or not even really understanding that there was a community that I fit in, but I definitely grew up in a space where I didn't feel comfortable. So that's what I did. And then I found this work was so much more rewarding, so much more fit me. So I had an opportunity of working for the Downtown Women's Center, which provides permanent supportive housing, full wraparound services, medical, mental health, employment, social enterprise services, for unhoused women in LA County. With our main focus is in Skid Row. I started as a site director working on a construction project that was 109 would grow to 119 units of permanent supportive housing, would provide about 50,000 square feet of program services. So I took that project on, working with the CEO at the time and the board of directors and all of the players. When you're building a building, there's everything from build site acquisition through end of construction and opening the building to the public. So all of that work to impact, hundreds of women, thousands of women over the years that it'll be standing for 50 plus years. So it was great work. I learned a lot through that process. Following that, we had at the Downtown Women's Center, we had opened a kind of a first of its kind social enterprise. We were definitely, and maybe not a first of its kind, but definitely in the forefront in Los Angeles of working with social enterprise to really impact homelessness for women. And it was perfect for me because of I was able to like combine my work in design or fashion design and then the work that I was doing or observing a lot of while I was at the Downtown Women's Center in my first position. So it gave me the opportunity to like just move around within the space. I was at the Downtown Women's Center for 18 years. So it was a great opportunity for me. Sometimes I feel like it fell into my lap, but it was something that I really worked toward in a subconscious and conscious way to get to a place where I could be in a space that provided impact.
Okay, I want to ask you two questions, but let me just ask you first for clarification because some people might not be familiar, especially if they're not here in LA, with the Downtown Women's Center. What is the social enterprise side of it? Like, how does that work? So people have a little bit of an idea.
Yeah, so the Downtown Women's Center is a nonprofit like I said, providing services for homeless women, including everything up to permanent housing. And a social enterprise, launched a social enterprise, which it's a typical business venture that has a revenue earning business venture that has a social impact component. And what our made by DWC, the Downtown Women's Center social enterprise, is a employment social enterprise. So we're selling products at our cafe and gift boutique, resale boutique, and our product line, home and gift collection, to provide space for women to re-enter the workforce after many years off the workforce, or for some, it's the first time entering the workforce, to really have that space that's comfortable for them to kind of live in their authentic selves within these spaces and grow professionally so they can move on to long-term employment and work on a sustainable income that will support them for the long haul.
Yeah, it's a fantastic initiative, and people can go in person and shop there. And there's a cafe, right? Still,
Yes.
yeah, and
Yeah.
there's an online store as well. So I'll put links if people want to check that out. Okay, so I am a little bit curious. Okay, I'm very curious about this shift from the for-profit to the non-profit. Sort of like, what made you choose to shift that way? And then maybe like, if you want to bust a couple of myths or talk a little bit about the difference between working in the for-profit and non-profit worlds.
Yeah. when we were just talking a little bit ago with you and talking about for-profit versus nonprofit, I kind of look at it more of like a for-profit versus impact businesses, for-profit businesses versus impact businesses. So nonprofits are typically impact businesses. They're run almost exactly the same as a for-profit business. So there's a P&L, there's a profit and loss statement with every nonprofit with every for-profit. So it's still working and functioning with a revenue coming in. It might be through earned revenue of selling our products in our cafe, but it also would be the majority of it is through government grants. So I just kind of like to move away from that term of nonprofit to more like impact driven businesses. And what drove me there was just that ability when I was working in the fashion industry and volunteering every night, every weekend within the community that I lived and thrived. It gave me that understanding that this is where I should be and move away from that. I, I didn't know what I was supposed to do when I was young, but I knew that I was supposed to do something good. I had a very close connection with my mom. We grew up Catholic in the Midwest, I say in the cornfields of Illinois. My father was very skeptical of leaders and powers that be. He gave me that ability to question things. My mom was a mother of 8, and including my dad would be 9. She definitely had to manage his childish behaviors, childish in a loving way. But yeah, I learned through her that there are ways that we can create change, and that just simply through love, simply through understanding, that change can happen. So I knew that. I just didn't know what that all meant. Like I said, I didn't grow up in a family that college was assumed. It was a big step to move in that direction, and I had no idea what the opportunities or possibilities were, to drive what I knew and what felt really good for me as a child, to look for that, like doing good and finding my authentic self, kind of definitely drove me in this direction.
Would you say that's your purpose with a capital P?
I'm sorry.
Would you say that's your purpose with a capital P?
Yeah, definitely. Yes, I would say it's my purpose, I think, is inspiring spaces of authenticity. So working in spaces, being available for others for me to share my authenticity and for others to bring their authenticity. It's not always safe, in the working world to bring our authenticity. There are many reasons why. And, when we talk about racism, misogyny, homophobia, transphobia, all of these phobias that keep us from showing our true selves. But I would say that is definitely my purpose, is to inspire space for authenticity.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah. And that's beautiful. And it really resonates with me. I think it's so important. And even the work I do with people, I feel like there is such a need for all of us to feel we can be ourselves, at work too. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely the work that you do as well. You allow people you create that space for authenticity.
no, but it's very much needed, I think. So that's so beautiful. I still wanna ask a little bit about this for-profit versus impact, creating
Yeah.
ways of working or environments. And let me say something, because I think if I remember correctly, well, actually, let me say this: a lot of people are scared of going from a for-profit position to working to nonprofit or impact driven, right?
Mhm.
But in your case, you didn't take a pay cut or something. Actually, for you, it was much better to shift from one to the other. So I was wondering if you can talk a little bit more about what you found as a difference between the two fields. And of course, we're generalizing, right? Like every company,
Yeah.
organization is different. But I'm sort of curious if you want to share maybe a couple of unexpected things that you didn't expect or that you've learned by working in both worlds.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is I think that there definitely are small social enterprise or small nonprofits out there or impact driven businesses that don't have large budgets, that don't can't pay or um, equally to a for-profit um, revenue focused business. But there are others that can. So if you're really interested in like shifting from that, corporate space to an impact driven space, take a look and see what's out there in the different fields and take your expert skills and move it into that space, into the place of, impact driven businesses. I think for me, I had the opportunity, wasn't even really, I had a driving force that required me to do work in my community. I needed it for my own person. So it helped me gain knowledge in those spaces to see what people are doing in these impact driven businesses throughout LA within the gay and lesbian community, the AIDS community. Um, like what are the what are the professional possibilities within these spaces or the career possibilities. So a person might start there, like, and identifying where they would want to volunteer and see what it's like. A lot of downtown women's center staff have come through our volunteer program, so it's not unusual for folks to volunteer first. But I think the biggest myth is the pay discrepancy. There are, like every business, in whatever business, there are lower wage positions to higher wage positions. So depending on what your skill level is and bringing to the space, I think some folks will be pleasantly surprised um, of what that can bring. And then it kind of, for me, it helped create a space where I could, I keep saying authenticity, but living in this space where I felt um, rewarded for what I did. Personally, got the ability to just feel good about what I'm doing while making a, pretty impactful, creating impactful solutions for folks. Um, but yeah, I think it's probably the biggest piece that people concern themselves with. And then just going back to like the revenue driven or profits driven businesses versus the impact driven businesses, they're basically the same. There's, the hierarchy exists in both, and there's a budgets and there's P&Ls and there's revenue concerns and staffing concerns and everything, the HR concerns at both that are equal. So I think we would find that they're more they have more in common than not when you're running one or the other. And a lot of
Interesting.
you know impact driven businesses are run by former folks that are formerly from profit driven businesses. So, and a lot of folks that I've met through working in this field is they do it for the same reason that I'm doing it. It's very personal.
Yeah, I think when I talk to people, doing work that's aligned with your values makes a big difference. And so, as I say this, I don't mean to imply that everybody will be happier at a mission-driven organization. Your value might be like, I really want to have a certain kind of abundant lifestyle and take care of my family and not think about work when I'm done. That could be and totally great. You'll do better at a place like that, right? If it's aligned with your values. So I think when I talk to people that are looking for what to do next, I think sometimes there's a tendency to think it's just going to be the money, or it's just going to be this, or it's just going to be that. But in reality, it's the whole package. and it's the whole thing together, because when we feel we're in alignment, things just make more sense. What to say yes to makes more sense. At least that's what I've observed. And I'm hearing a little bit like it's also maybe what you're saying. Your drive was so strong that it just made sense to make that shift.
Yeah, yeah, there's definitely ways to impact your community that isn't changing your careers,
Mm.
joining a board, volunteering at a local nonprofit that really fits your personal beliefs and
Mm.
values. Could be at your church that you go to. It could be at the the pound, or because you love cats and dogs and other animals. And there are ways of living your truth, I guess, through volunteerism as well. So,
Mm.
and it's heavily needed in the impact driven businesses across Southern California. But it is another way of looking at like serving your purpose.
Yeah, and also I sometimes share this, which is it's maybe counterintuitive, but I think especially when we're going through some and a little bit of a hard time, or we're not sure what we're gonna do, or we feel a little bit insecure, to volunteer or contribute any way you can to something else or someone else is the most healing thing, right? Because the tendency will be like, okay, I'm not happy what I'm doing, so I need to focus on me. But actually, that can create more insecurity and more pressure. And the moment we step outside and we get involved and we give, that might be the thing that opens the door for
Yeah,
insight.
yeah, definitely. I think, and it can be about you too, right? Like I think we all have our own agendas, right? Like, part of me, taking this job was because I was able to, when I think about in 2005, when I shifted from, for profit to impact driven businesses, like how do I, it was about me. It was I was coming from a selfish space. I needed this for myself. And then I also found that by giving of myself, I was able to see a reward there as well. But I
Mm.
think we all have our own agendas when we come into whatever we're doing, the work that we're doing. So be a little selfish and switch careers to make good in the world, right? Like do that for you and then see how it can impact everyone else.
It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be an either or.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Love it. Um, so I know you right now, you're in a phase of exploration and reinvention, and I'm curious to hear a little bit about that and how maybe you see, a change now compared to 20 years ago when you had a big change.
Yeah, it's very, very different. Yes, I recently moved from Los Angeles to Long Beach. It's not a long shift, it's only 30 miles, but it is so different. Long Beach is such a different community than LA. I live 3 blocks from the beach. This is where, when I was in those cornfields of Illinois, this is where I wanted to be. And then I was, spent um, 30 plus years inland in Los Angeles. So now I'm at the beach. I'm where I wanted to be when I moved here from a child. I knew I wanted to be here. And now I'm exploring the local community and seeing what the needs are and what's happening here. So meeting with some, networking with new people in Long Beach, networking, pulling out my colleagues that I've worked with already that happen to live in Long Beach or work in Long Beach. So finding out what this landscape is within the local community and what the needs are. I've been here now for a little over a year. And it was just perfect timing to be able to jump into something new. It was not without thought. It was definitely, there was fear, So it did take courage. I didn't, say, oh, I've done this before, I can do it again. However, I did draw on that like experience from the past, right? Like, okay, I didn't, I was able to quit my job in fashion and move into homeless services and social enterprise. I can do this again. I did draw on that success, but there was still fear. So I think when we talk about housing and our employment, those are the two biggest um, anxiety drivers for everyone, right? Because it's our place where we lay our head. It's our place where we raise our families. It's our place where we serve our meals, have our meals, enjoy our community, and it gives us. It can be anxiety ridden if we lose if we to make that change. And our career provides us all of the necessary dollars that it takes to have that house and that family and those community members to enjoy life. So it definitely takes courage to do it, and recognize that. I would say recognize that in yourself. What does that mean for you? For each of us, it means something different because of our history. We all bring our history, regardless of how far we've moved forward. We're still going to bring those thoughts and those concerns that we were, that are very familial to us. Yeah.
Where do you find your courage?
I think it's through, the years. I've got, really great friends who encourage me constantly. There, I don't really have a group of people, and family as well. When I share my ideas for whatever my idea is, whether it's selling my house and moving, or quitting my long-term career and moving to a different city, like all of that is they're supportive of me. So I have a network of family and friends and colleagues that all support and come from a supportive space. So I don't have to. I This back here in my head can be the negative, while everyone else that is present in my life is all very positive and want me to do well. So reaching out to others is where I find a lot of my courage. Um,
That's really beautiful. I'm glad you're sharing this about the fear, because I think when people change careers or have a transition, there is sometimes a belief or an expectation that, oh, well, I should be able to do this without being scared or without feeling insecure. And it's like, no, that's actually what happens. Like, when we get into these situations, like where we're at a change, we're trying to do something different, maybe we're thrown in it, like,
yeah,
yeah, that's a human thing to do, is to be scared, have some insecure thoughts, but it's also a very beautiful human being thing to do, to support others and to listen and to remind them that, yeah, yeah, it's okay. You're feeling a little bit discouraged, that's normal, but you're really the
yeah.
great person you've always been.
I
So,
think like getting in, engaging in your community and bringing new people or new groups into your community, like you, for instance. I've learned a lot from knowing you. I think we've known each other for 6+ years. Just having you and listening to what you're doing and what you're sharing about other professionals who are looking to make those changes, personal changes. um, it gives me courage, right? So the more we can create a network of folks that we can watch and admire. Um, One of my sisters has, shifted, moved twice, had two really big moves in her life, cross country with nothing on the other end, and like just admiring that in her, like what she had, that she was able to pick that up. And I know she was scared throughout the process. So I really think I I don't like to forget mistakes that I made along the way. I want to learn from mistakes, so I want to remember those. I also want to learn from the courage that I had or others have had throughout time, where I can draw on those to be able to make those next steps. And it's still fearful. I'm going to
Yeah,
say
you can't skip it,
personally,
right? Yeah,
still,
you
yeah,
can't be like, I
you
know.
can't get rid of it. Yeah, yeah,
For me too, Joe. It's like
yeah,
I talk about stuff all the time, but then if it's my turn, I have my coach and I have all the feelings too.
yeah, yeah,
Right? And I temporarily forget that this is, I mean, that's just being, it's just being human, but it's good to have a little bit of also sense of humor about it. Like I find myself then having a laugh once in a while about how it works.
yeah,
I have to ask you something. It's become a bit of a tradition here where I ask everybody. So as you know, like a big part of my work is that I really say I open up space for inner wisdom to show up because I really think each one of us has inner wisdom, inner guidance, really meant for us. I'm curious if how you resonate with that or not. Do you think we have inner wisdom, and how does that show up or not for you?
yeah. I think yes, wisdom comes with experience. Wisdom comes with age. You can have your wisdom hopefully changes throughout time based on what you've learned. I'm not the same person that I was 5 years ago. I'm definitely not the same person that I was 20 years ago. So yeah, definitely. I think pull it, I guess my inner wisdom is understand it, looking at my failures and recognizing those. Don't push them away because I can grow from failures. Looking at where others in my life have shown me that they have courage, which allows me to feed off of that courage from others. Um, and yeah, leaning on myself and leaning on others. I can't, we can have all of the knowledge, but we still have to do this together. And just building a community. If you don't have a community that's supportive, not all families are supportive, not all friends are supportive. Identify those that are supportive that will take you through. Um, I might not share my idea of leaving Los Angeles and moving to Long Beach with certain folks because I know they might bring in my concern that they might bring in a negative aspect. And I think we all know who those folks are. Not that we have to get rid of them. They don't have to leave our lives, but we might not call on them for that. We might call on them to borrow the lawnmower, or to invite over for a barbecue, but not to make huge life-changing decisions. Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought this up, actually. So what do we do if we feel like we don't have that support? And there's a couple of things I really want to share. One is that it really sometimes it's very cultural. Like I feel like, and I'm gonna generalize, but when I lived in LA, San Francisco, in general, the culture is much more like, oh, you want to do something, yes, like that. Not all cultures are like that. Even when I'm from in Italy, you get a lot more negativity by default. Um, so whether it's a cultural thing or you just don't have in your life supportive people, what I want to offer as somebody who didn't always have a lot of supportive people around me is that you can find them. It's really, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
And if you sort of set your mind in that direction, whether it's online or in your neighborhood, you will find like-minded people who understand that, yeah, we need some hope, we need some positivity, we need some conversations that lift us up, and we can create out of
Yeah.
possibilities and do so much more that maybe it looks like to us in a moment where we are in between things.
Yeah, I think I would give everyone that's watching that is maybe come up up against a wall on finding that ability, courage, whatever it is, to make that first step toward their personal goal, is to keep following Repurpose Your Purpose podcast. And because I think you're going to be sharing everyone's information, right? So you can build a network of people, even if it's just on LinkedIn. You can go, you might have an in-person event that they'll find out if they start following you on your YouTube channel or your Instagram or Twitter, wherever you're going to be featuring
I'm not
the
on Twitter,
podcast.
but okay. I'm not on
Okay.
Twitter. I'm not on Twitter.
Okay. So
Everywhere else.
it just will give people like this could be your jumping off point. And then you're going to find someone in in this series, your podcast series that's going to resonate with you. And then from there you're gonna meet the next person and the next person and the next person. Um, there was an old commercial that you tell two friends and you tell two friends and you tell two, and it was about shampoo, and so everyone had beautiful hair. It was really interesting because it was all blonde women, but I guess only blonde women can have beautiful hair. But
Oh no.
no, it's that thing that once you start planting a seed, it's gonna grow. The seed's gonna grow, regardless of how fertile the soil is, right? The more fertile, the quicker it will grow, or the more healthy it will grow. The less fertile, maybe the slower it will grow, or the more nurturing it's gonna need down the road in 3, 6 months, a year, whatever. But then you're adding that. I'm doing these metaphors, but
I
adding
love it.
that fertilizer with each new person that you meet, each new community member that you bring in, um, that can bring that positiveness to your life. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. Wow, it feels like a good time to start wrapping this up. But first, I want to ask you anything else that you want to share that maybe I haven't asked you about, or you just feel like you want to say.
Wow. I think we covered a lot, and I'm really excited that you're bringing this to podcast version, because I remember when we did this, I was on one of your panels that was in person. It was really great, but this gives you the capacity to reach more people.
Mm,
So I'm really
mm,
excited for you. I know you know,
thank you.
uh, maybe you have to edit this piece out, but I don't know when it's going to be aired. But when I you're just bringing this possibility to more people, um, and you have shown that when you plant the seed of thinking about, I'm going to do a podcast. I think you told me that you were thinking about this for a couple of years, and now you're going to do it. So it's here, and you're doing it, and um, you are reaping the rewards from planting that, from finding the courage in yourself, to do it and move forward.
Thank you.
So,
I had to really remind myself that at some point you have to stop thinking about it and get into action. And see, that's what
yeah,
I mean. I forget too, but I tell my clients sometimes. So there you go.
yeah.
All right. So if people want to get in touch with you or anything that, they can help you with, how should they go about it?
I think the easiest way is through LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's uh,
I'll put the
Joe
link.
Altepeter, JoeAltepeter. I think you're gonna like show all of this, but LinkedIn would be the best way.
Mhm. Great. And for everybody who's been listening or watching this, my name is Aurora Minigallo. This is the Repurpose Your Purpose podcast. And if you're curious about how to do work you love or how to grow your organization in a space of well-being and effectiveness, get in touch at repurposeyourpurpose.com. Thank you, Joe. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Aurora. This is great. I love it.